So the point of this video is to go over some of the basics of using VS Code so that you're a little more familiar when you jump in and start coding. So the first thing we're going to do here is open a folder in VS Code. That way we can get started on working on things. So I'm going to take this on Mac and you can just drag over the icon and drop it. If you're opening a folder and you're doing it on Windows, then you're going to have to go in this welcome screen and click open there, or you may have to go to file in the top menu bar and go to open folder. So I've got this example folder open in my Explorer here. It doesn't have any files on it. Over here, if you click on this top icon, this is where all of the files are going to be stored once they're open. And there are other views if you click the three dots that you can see. Now, most of the time, I only use the folders view. The other views, if you're not familiar with what they do, the timeline view will show when the last saves were made, things like that. Open editors will show any tabs that you have open over here. An outline will give you an outline of the elements that are in your file. And then this other one is just an extension I have installed. So I've got this folder open. When I go to create my first files for the project, I'm going to click the little file icon here to create it. Now, anytime you create a file up here, you need to make sure that you put the file extension on it. That way, if it's used elsewhere, other programs can see what it actually was. So here we're going to do an HTML file. I'm going to use index.html. And so I've created my HTML file. Now, I'm going to disable the GitHub Copilot stuff here so that we are not getting Copilot suggestions. There is a built-in thing in VS Code called emit. And what emit does is anytime there is something that may have multiple options or that it can help you autocomplete, a lot of times it'll pop up with the options so that you can see what they are. So if I do an exclamation point here, it, if selected, will create all of this code here, which is the boilerplate code that you typically need for a basic HTML document. You'll see there's this other option, and if I arrow down on my keyboard, I can go to that and see what it is as well. Now, when you open emit for the first time, or when emit pops up for the first time, you may have an issue to where you have to click the little arrow that pops up when you hover over it. It'll say emit abbreviation, then you just click that arrow and it'll show you what that option will put in. Different options do different things. The better you learn them, the faster it'll make you. So here I'm just going to click enter and it creates all this boilerplate code. Now, when you're doing your code in VS Code, there are a lot of things that VS Code will do to try to help you realize when there are mistakes. So here I'm going to make a title. And I'm just going to say title of my web page. And then let's say I forgot this closing tag. You can see that the body tag below it is grayed out now. And that is a hint that something's not right. If I forget this closing tag, you'll notice my H1 tag goes all white. So the color coding here gives us clues as to what's going on. Now, the longer you use a particular theme, the more familiar you're going to get with kind of the color code that goes with it. So let's say we're working in JavaScript and I create a function. And my function is going to take in A and B and return A, B. Let's say I forget to put the curly bracket that opens the part of the code that's going to run when you call the function. You'll notice I've got a couple squiggly lines here. That's called linting. That occurs anytime that there's an error in the file. Now, there are errors that will slip by, but most of the common errors that you're going to make are going to pop up here. So I'm going to put that back in, and you'll notice that it automatically does a closing curly bracket there. I can delete that, and now all my errors are straight. If you have an error On the right side over here, you can see these red lines. And usually if you have the mini map enabled, so I can go to the view tab and go down to, it is in the appearance area. You can select mini map. And what the mini map is it's a little map of the code. But you can see this red line across the mini map there. That's letting me know where my error is. Now, also, the top will go solid red when there's an error that needs to be corrected, just to kind of give you a few more hints. These are some of the reasons why we use VS Code, because it makes our job easier as coders. Now, any changes you make to the files over here are actually happening in the file folder where the stuff is saved. So these two files I created are actually in the folder. If I delete a file out of the folder, it deletes it out of here. So let's say this index.js is one I don't want anymore. When I delete it, it's going to go away over there. So it creates that issue to where things are linked, and you've got to keep that straight in your head when you're working on this stuff. This is basically your folder open. Now, that covers file management, but what are these icons over here? Well, most of these icons down here are extensions that I have installed. VS Code allows you to do a lot of customizability. It allows you to use other tools that are built in by other developers. And these tools are all installed through this through this icon right here that takes you to the extensions. Now, when there are updates, a lot of times it will tell you that a reload is required once it loads up. So if I do the reload, it'll fix it for all of those. And it just reopens this and refreshes everything. So my index.js is no longer there, so it's showing it can't open it. I can just exit out of that. Now, there is an extension that we recommend that you download right off the beginning. This is very useful. You're also going to notice how many installs this has. It's Live Server by Ritwick Day. And what this does, it allows you to open a fake web server. And this fake web server will update every time the file is saved so that you can see the changes to your file. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch a file using this live server. I already have it installed. You just click where this disable is, will say install if you have an option. There are other options if you want to disable it or disable it just in a particular workspace, or if you want to uninstall it, or if you want to install a different version, things like that. But I'm going to go back over here to my index.html file. And there are two ways to launch Live Server. You can right click on the file and go to open with Live Server, or if you want to, you can also go down here to where it says go live and you can click there and it will launch it that way. And what this does is it launches in your default web browser. So in this case, I'm using Google Chrome, and so it's going to load up in Google Chrome for me and let me see the web page. So from there, all of your code will update anytime the file is saved. So if I did have JavaScript connected and I was looking at the console over here, anytime I save in VS Code, this will update. Now, for this second extension to launch your code like this, it works a little bit differently. So the second extension that I'm going to talk about here is Live Preview by Microsoft. And it's a new extension that they have built. They even give credit at the bottom of the documentation to Live Server because they're trying to provide a better option for us. So when this is installed, you have a little bit different setup than you do for launching with Live Server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and pull this all the way wide, and I'm going to right click and go down to show preview. That's how you launch your fake server using Live Preview. And it'll launch it over here. The only issue that I've had so far with Live Server, well, there are two to be exact. The zoom. is a little bit closer than it typically would be using any of the other server apps. The other issue, when you click over here to open your DevTools panel, every single time you type over here, it updates this. So you have to clear out your console. And then if you're working in JavaScript, every character you put in reruns the file. So if you console log out like an array, you're going to have every character running to console out that array. That is very annoying to me. But if I'm doing the layout on a website, it's kind of nice to have that because then you can see immediately what's happening. Now, when we're looking at working in the workspace here, there are a ton of customizable things that we can do as far as being able to see things around on our screen. So let's say I don't like this bar on this side, I want it on the other side. I can right click down here and move it to the right, and it shifts the whole thing around. Well, that's not all the customizability that I have here. What if I want my files only to be on the right side? I can drag those over here, and now my file explorer will be displayed over here when I click right there. It just opens the file explorer for me. If I want to move it back, I just slide it back over and put it at the top up here. And now I have my file explorer back where it was. Now, where this comes in handy is when you're running code. So if I am running some JavaScript, let's say, and I run it down here in the terminal. So let me link up a JavaScript file real quick. And I'm going to use that emmet here. And I'm going to type in script and go down to script src here and put index.js. And you see it pops up the files that are in here when you're doing paths. Makes it very handy. So I've got this index.js. Now let's make an array and console it out. So I'm going to say let names array equal, and it's going to give me some names here. And then I want to console.log those names. And then I'm also going to console.table those. So that way I'll have it print out two different ways. Now, if you have Node installed, you can go down here and you can type in Node and then index.js. As long as you're in the folder, make sure you're in the folder and then hit enter, and it will print out the results down here. But if you'll notice, I have no way of knowing what lines this is running on. If I use the run and debug in order to do it, I can click for the JavaScript debug terminal, and sometimes it will give me the information about what line. But I think primarily you have to run it using this up here in order to get that out. And in the debug console, it tells you the line numbers. Now, the line numbers are useful if you want to see where a particular error was, if it logs out an error. This is the same stuff you would see in the console for the most part. But this, if I'm wanting to see like my terminal on the side, I can drag it out of here too, which lends itself well for the customizability because I can have my terminal open over here and my debug over here if I want it. I can see problems or output, all that kind of stuff, and I can switch around and do different setups here for how I want to see things. Now, I don't always use terminal and debug together. I just wanted to show how you can kind of shift things around. Now, I mentioned customizability. When you are setting up your VS Code, a lot of times people like to go to dark mode because it's typically easier on the eyes. If you want a theme that is not already installed, so let's say you wanted the jellyfish theme, which is one of my favorites. You can type in jellyfish and go to the store, and you can see there's this version of jellyfish. There's this version which I have installed of jellyfish, which actually I think I'm going to install this version. So we'll pick this version and install it. When you install a new theme, it gives you the option to set the theme right here. But if you want to change it and it's already installed and you don't want to go through this extension map, you can actually, oh, I just found a problem with this theme too. It's kind of hard to see where the lines are to resize windows. But if you want to change something, you can click this command cog down here and go to themes, and you can change your product icon themes, which are the themes on the far left side. You can change your file icon themes, which are the 5 and the JavaScript logo that I have for mine, or you can change your color theme. Any of those 3 will work. When you do color theme, it pops up all the themes in your command palette here, and you can go up and down and see what each theme looks like. So I can see what the old jellyfish looks like. I can see what this different one looks like and the differences in the color. I can go to Can Be Dark, this matrix theme. A lot of these are installed after the fact. Now, you do have some basic ones that are installed when you first start. There is this Dark Visual Studio, which is probably what yours looks like, or there is a section at the top with light themes. Watch your eyes, it's going to get super bright. And there are all these that I have installed. This is the default light one. You can skip around and get what really appeals to you. And you'll find that different times of the day, you may want different themes. So we're going to go with this new jellyfish that I just downloaded. And if you need to change the settings on a extension that you've installed, you can click the cog over here and kind of go down and look in it. And that way you can do a little bit more with what you're trying to customize. Now, there are some basic settings that you're probably going to think that you may want to change right off the bat with VS Code. So if you click the cog down here and go to settings, it'll pull up the settings panel here. And they have the commonly used ones right off the bat, like how big is your font size in pixels, what fonts are you wanting to use in the editor. Now it says modified elsewhere here because I have custom fonts installed for mine. You can do that too. If you're wanting to see the JSON file where all the granular settings are, you can type in settings and click on edit in JSON. And there are a couple different settings here to where you can get to that file. And then you can really get granular in how things are set up. So like I use a extension called comment anchors. Well, I came in here and changed some settings to where when I use a comment anchor, it will make the entire text of the comment the color that the anchor is, and it makes it a custom color that I have set in here. So there are really a ton of things you can do. Another thing that I like is turning word wrap on. You can do that in the basic settings here. You just type in word wrap and you have word wrap options here. You can tell it how wide you want a column to be, how you want to use it. There's different settings for this, which I think that theme is messing up. But you have word wrap column, bounded, or just on. I leave mine to just on because if I'm on different size screens, I want to be able to see my code still. Stuff like autosave, you just type it in and you can set up. Now, I recommend typing in autosave if you're going to edit autosave because there are other options that pop up below it. So like I have after delay set, I can set how many milliseconds I want it to wait before it saves. So if I want it to wait 2 seconds, I'll just do 2000 milliseconds. Or if I want it to wait a second and a half, I'll do 1500. So all of this is stuff that's really useful as far as customizing what you're doing. If you don't know what something is, it's often good to just not mess with it. If you start messing with things, you may get later in your development cycle and realize that you needed something that you've changed a setting for, and you'd be watching a video and it's not set up that way. And so you don't have a clue what's going on. So be cautious of those things. Overall, VS Code and the customizability in it really make it a fun program to work with. Um, I highly recommend customizing to what fits best for you. This black and diamond one is darker for me. And so it's easier on my eyes during the day, which means I can sit and code longer comfortably without it affecting me. So if you get this set up the way you like, I really think that you'll be happier with coding in VS Code. There are a lot of advantages over other code editors out there, and there are constant updates to it. So if you don't see what you like now, eventually you might. Also, there is a strong developer community for extensions for this because everybody has that one little thing they want to see done. And we are the community that builds things. So we build it into the app ourselves, which means if you want something like the comment anchors to be usable, then you can come over here now, thanks to whoever coded this, and I can do an info anchor and I can say what I want and have it anchored over here to where I can go straight to it and reference it. So play around with the customizability of it, get your work environment set up the way you like it, and I think it will make you much happier with coding. Keep coding out there and have a great day.